Burkina Faso, Guinea, Chad, Niger, Mali, Sudan, and not too long ago, Gabon. These countries have recently experienced military coups. The military leaders say they staged the coups to stop corruption, deteriorating security, bad leadership, among other reasons. Hello and welcome to Our Voices. I'm Oriani Tangishaka, and here with me is my co-host Simonish Yakoye. And I'm very pleased to announce that we have a new member on the team, Niwa Kapumbu Villa. She hails from the Democratic Republic of Congo and grew up in France. Here at Voice of America, she is part of the French to Africa team. She is the co-host of the Vous et Nous program. Niwa, we are so happy to have you.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome.
I feel home. Thank you so much.
Welcome on the team.
Glad to be here.
Now, it's really a pleasure to have a new member. It's always a pleasure. Now, ladies, I know we're going to be talking about a hard topic today, but about 20 years ago, we experienced a real decline in coup d'etats on the continent, as you've been reporting. But 2021, 2022, 2023, we saw 7 coups in less than 3 years. Does our generation see this as, especially women, do they see this as a real modern-day revolution against what they see as bad leadership?
Oh, yes. I mean, this is, I think, a reaction to years of bad governance, poverty, inequality. And I think I see 2 factors here, internal and external. Internally, people are frustrated with bad governance, mismanagement of resources, growing insecurity. Yes, elections are there, but they are just symbolic. You know, one person or one family stays in power for decades without any meaningful, impact on the citizens. And externally, there is a foreign influence. We have seen the growing influence of Russia and China in recent years, especially in these countries where the West used to be more dominant.
Right.
So, these Francophone countries, they see this new power coming to support them, and I think they're taking advantage of that.
I totally agree. And you know what I think? I think globalization is also a driving force. Because we see now those coups live almost. You know, it's no more radio, it's no more newspaper.
Right.
It's open your Facebook and you see things going on. I feel like it makes it so almost easy to do.
People think that, oh, this can be done, so why not us too, right? Yeah.
That's right. Well, I agree. What I think is very interesting is that in the past, the coups were more like between politicians or military leaders, but now the coups are the people ousting the leaders. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says coups are not the solution. However, some say the only solution to ending dictatorship and family dynasties that impoverish their nations is to stage a coup. With significant similarities among countries that recently ousted their presidents, 6 out of 7 are former French colonies, and 5 out of all of them use the currency that is pegged to the French treasury, called the franc CFA. There has been anti-French sentiment among the citizens in these countries. They blame France for working with these ousted leaders to continue former colonial practices, which include unlawfully taking resources from those countries. However, speaking to a crowd of young Burkina students in 2017, President Macron said, quote, "I am from a generation that does not tell Africa what to do. Yet Africa, after a heated debate between France and Africa, some of these former colonies, French colonies, stated that it will not tolerate any attacks on France and its interest and will respond immediately." Today, we zoom in on the most recent coups and ask, what are women's voices on the matter? What do they propose as the best way forward?
That's right. We begin in Niger, where the new leader that seized power last month has instructed the police to expel French ambassador to the country, Sylvain Ité, while some women take to the street of Niamey, cheering on and making demands. Olivia Chan reports.
Niger's junta says they have instructed police to expel the French ambassador to the country. In a statement, the junta, which seized power in a coup on July 26, says Sylvain Ité no longer had diplomatic immunity. The ambassador was ordered to leave within 48 hours in response to actions taken by the French government that the junta said were, quote, contrary to the interests of Niger. The visas of the ambassador and his family were cancelled, the junta said in a statement dated August 29th and confirmed as authentic by the junta's head of communications. The foreign ministry in Paris responded saying that the Niger coup leaders have, quote, no authority to ask France's ambassador in Niamey to leave. French President Emmanuel Macron said that the ambassador would stay in the country despite the junta's pressure and reiterated France's support to Niger's ousted president Mohamed Bazoum. Hundreds of women protested outside the French embassy in Niamey, calling for France to remove its troops and military bases from the country. They banged on pots and pans, pretended to sweep and chanted anti-French slogans.
You can see we've emptied out our kitchens. We've come here with pans and spoons and cooking pots. We're here to say no to imperialism. We were born to colonialism. We're tired of letting the colonizers rule, and that's why we're here.
We don't want macaroni anymore, or whatever his name is. I don't even care to know his name. We need another type of base here. For example, Russia. May Russia come here and support us. We need Russia.
Like recent coups in neighbouring Burkina Faso and Mali, the military takeover in Niger came amid a growing wave of anti-French sentiment.
Indeed, growing anti-French sentiments in that region. Now, ladies, do you think that France is to be blamed?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
they for sure in a hot seat. And there's no coincidence. Most of those countries are French colonies.
That's right.
So
I feel like French is partly to be blamed, not entirely, but partly, because since the end of colonization, French never really left. It's not only engaging these countries, it's involved in the political matters, in managing resources, in extracting resources. And throughout these years, people have only been getting poorer and poorer while, living in these rich countries.
That's right. Well, one of the reports, we've been covering this very extensively, and one of the reports, I had a woman who said, well, if France think that we're a poor country, then why are they here? It's as if, there's an unwanted guest that just doesn't want to leave. But we'll definitely talk more about this. I think that we need to really look at also when French says that they will protect their interest at all costs and, quote unquote, immediately. What does that mean? I mean, are we looking at a civil war coming up? I mean, the other countries like Burkina Faso and the other ones are coming together militarily to band together to say, if you attack this one, then we come in. So I think it's a very volatile situation.
And we don't have also one thing we shouldn't forget is that France military has been on the ground for decades, right? But insecurity has only been growing. These extreme terrorism activities has been growing in these areas.
Right.
So
and then of course you add the element of, as you've mentioned, the other countries coming in, China and Russia. You have the Wagner Group, and what is the role there? What are they saying? Are they standing by? Are they going to be called in to help? And so we really definitely should be watching this very closely, because I think when Niger, for instance, says that they're going to defend their country, what does that mean? Because they are also being threatened by ECOWAS, the economic community there, who had threatened with sanctions. But it's a lot at play, I think.
plus, I mean, in comparison, French countries, French colonies, and British countries, they're not developing at the same rate.
That's true.
And they can see that.
That's true. The people are definitely wanting some change. Women are really, it's really interesting that in these particular situations, we are seeing women becoming more vocal.
And they're vocal in supporting these coups, right?
Yeah.
They are not opposing. You don't see people. They want people to change. That's what shows you like how much the frustration is there. And women are saying, because they are the real vulnerable people who are living in poverty, who are, losing so much in their families.
It's interesting when I saw them banging on pots and sweeping the floor. I thought that was very interesting and very symbolic. They're saying, look, we're going to leave the chores. Yeah. And we're going to take the chores in the streets.
Exactly.
You know, it's very symbolic because, you know, it might have an extra meaning to them, but when you're looking at it, it's like we are just going to show you that we're women, but we're coming in the streets, you know.
But how do you see the women involvement? I mean, these are not countries where women have been empowered for years, right? They are not really, the representation in the government has not been that much.
Right.
The representation, even in the coup, they are not really involved in the actual coup process.
And that's why I agree with you when you say that France is partly to be blamed. You know, the leaders are also partly to be blamed because they have a part to play. As you've mentioned in our discussion prior to beginning the show, since colonization, you know, there have been things that they should have been doing as leaders of the nation. They had some level of sovereignty, we should say.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't France who were totally, you know, in control.
It was at the will of the leaders
That's
who
right.
were working with those Western countries to, you know, take over, to control all these resources inside the country. So with that corruption and mismanagement and inequality, the leaders allowed all that to flourish in the country.
And I think they see it as an opportunity to be seen.
Women,
Yeah.
that's right, to voice their opinion. Because that is true. In many coups d'etats, we have not seen manifestation, we have not seen protest, I should say, of women actually saying, look, this coup is actually something that we want to support in the open.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we can dive deep into this, and we're hoping to speak to people and to hear more voices on the continent, especially of what they propose as solution as we need to delve deep into this situation, because my fear is, you know, people getting killed, people actually losing their lives over what? Change of leadership. I mean, we were enjoying for a while smooth transition of power. And now we're going back to where maybe there might be some bloodshed, and that's really my worry.
Yeah, I mean, we have an expert we invited. We are trying to connect to the expert over Skype. But while we are waiting for her to join us, you know, I also worry about the future of women as well. Like, how are they going to be involved in future government formation?
That's true. That's true.
Is this a chance for them to say, you know what? It's nice for men to dominate and allow our countries to be exploited. So now maybe it's our turn to be involved with it.
Right.
Do you think that will happen?
You cannot leave women out of the conversation.
Right.
This is Africa.
Right.
They are a big part of the economy.
Right.
You know, it's
They're
small
driving
business.
the economy.
They're driving the economy. So they must be there. They must, you know, be sitting at the table. We cannot ignore them. So.
Okay. Yeah, we'll continue the conversation, and to understand more about this situation, we have invited an expert from Southern Voices Network and for Peace Building. We are waiting for her to connect, but in the meantime, it's time for a break. We will continue our discussion, and but we ask you to share your thoughts about these coups and how they should take part. Women should take part for lasting solution. Share your ideas, your comments on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, on Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Use the hashtag VOA Our Voices. We are also on WhatsApp, and our number is US country code +1 202 503 9025. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
Welcome back. You are watching Our Voices. We are getting women's take and solution to the current political changes taking place in many countries in Africa through coup d'etat. With us via Skype, Miss Ganji, who is in residence at the Wilson Center Africa program in Washington, D.C. Before we continue our discussion, let's hear some proposed solutions from the women on the ground in Niamey, Niger. We have Naomi Binta, Abubakar Zakari Safiatou, and Abdou Marietou in our Your Voices segment.
We are asking for the departure of French troops, the lifting of sanctions. We don't want a military intervention. We want peace. We want a change in behavior. We want a real revolution in this country. Because, you know, this country is a rich country, but it's still pulling the devil by the tail. It is a country that is sitting on enormous wealth. We want a president who will really put Nigerians back to work. Whether he is a civilian leader, whether he is a military leader, what we want from him is to serve the people of Niger and put them first.
Nigerian women have gained in terms of their empowerment in the various decision-making bodies concerning the management of state affairs. These achievements are the result of a long struggle and need to be secured. The transitional authorities need to take this into account, and we call on these women at all levels of representation so that we feel the presence of women in our governing bodies.
First, we have laws that give effective rights to women, which can be reviewed and granted. According to the law on the quotas, we are at 30% representation. Why not bring it up to 50%? We know that it was during a period of transition that we had these quotas. We really want this achievement that we accomplished through struggles to be recognized. Also, we want the creation of a ministry for the advancement of women and also for child protection. The schools are not working. Even in the hospitals, there is a lack of first aid, and it is the women who suffer the most. Today, more than 600 schools are closed. We expect them to reopen these schools because children have the right to go to school. These children need to go to school. In terms of the economy, we should grant more rights to women to boost entrepreneurship. If women are empowered, I think that the economy will be boosted and development assured.
Ms. Nganji, thank you so much for joining us. Now tell us briefly, why are we having all these coups in West Africa? What's the driving force?
Thank you so much for having me. You know, the coups in the West African countries that are currently happening have their drivers stemming from, of course, the previous colonial rule from the French. And of course, we cannot deny that government dispensations in those countries have also failed to govern in such a way that they take care of the developmental needs of the societies and citizens of those countries. So that is why we are currently experiencing a surge of coups in those countries.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Ganji. And it's interesting that you brought up that, the colonizers have a role to play in this, as you've said. I had an interesting conversation with Dr. Chiombori Kaur, who was the former African Union ambassador here in Washington. And that was 3 years ago. And this is something she had to say, and we can react to that very quickly.
The question I had right from the get-go, first, respect to the euro. Secondly, it's still going to be printed in France. Third, they may try to say we are eliminating the colonial tax, but they're replacing it with the foreign exchange tax. These countries are very capable of negotiating their own deals. Their funds don't have to go through the French central bank. Even countries wanting to trade with African countries, they don't have to go through French central bank. So there are all those technicalities that are just stupid. What's needed is complete separation. France has got to get out of Africa, really, honestly. Enough is enough. To take $500 billion out of Africa, I mean, it is insanity of the highest order. In countries that are supposedly poor, and making those countries fund French education, French healthcare system, create jobs for French youth while we are struggling in our country. It's no longer sustainable. President Macron needs to wake up and smell the coffee. And the African youth are the ones he's going to have to deal with. The African youth are not taking it anymore.
She was talking about the franc CFA, the currency, and she's talking about youth are not taking it anymore. What is your take?
Yeah, most definitely. She is right in talking about the taxes that West African countries are paying to France, and of course the support that the French have previously given to political leaders that do not really advance the interests of the people. So she is very right about the contribution of France in what is currently going on in West African countries.
So we also heard that women who say that women need to be empowered in areas such as entrepreneurship. What can be done to ensure that women are included in this transitional government? Should it be in the constitution or a part of the negotiation?
Yes, most definitely. Women, there is a study that is out currently that talks about the role of women play in peace building, and the evidence is that where women were involved in the dialogue, the negotiations, that were able to be peace agreements that are reached. So definitely women have a place and a role to play in going forward, facilitating a transition that is inclusive of all civilians, right? But then again, like one of the women said, if there is no institution or government institution that is deliberately put in place to put forward the concerns and the interests of women, definitely we wouldn't see much progress in including women in political and decision-making process. And obviously, like you said, constitution will be a tool going forward, including those aspects, and the constitution will be a tool going forward to facilitate that kind of inclusion.
Ms. Nganji, there was something interesting the military coup leader of Gabon said while he was being sworn in, and he said the coup was peaceful. What do you take of that? Is coup justified because as a government transition means just because it was peaceful?
Definitely not. Because like we are saying, we're talking about constitution. So if you go against what the constitution says, and there have been talks about unconstitutional changes of government are not really just coups, right? The extension of presidential term limits are also unconstitutional. The flawed elections that leaders do not recognize, and so they install themselves as leaders after the flawed elections are also unconstitutional power transfers. So it's really complicated, but there's no how that anything that happens outside of the Constitution should be recognized. Yes.
But I must say, Ms. Ganji, that although the coups are not the solution, you saw in the story that women are supporting these coups. What do you say to those women?
Women are supporting the coups because women have the agency and they are conscious of the current political happenings in their countries. So really just coming out is saying we understand what is going on and we are in support of what is going on. And of course, it gives us hope that maybe what is happening will then take care of the concerns that we've always been raising as women.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, Ms. Nganji, there with your take on this current situation. It is a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, ladies, I'm going to throw this question out to you. We've talked about Niger, and you know there's been about 7 countries who've experienced coup d'etats.
Right.
In Gabon, let's go back to Gabon. Some say that the actual coup was not a military coup, but it was Paris's doing because, you know, Ali Bongo's health was, you know, going down, and his own sentiment, Ali Bongo's sentiment to France was also not good. What do you take of that?
I mean, that's going back to where all this started, right? The question is making sure that the citizens of that country are going to benefit from their own resources, are going to be equally treated and be able to be represented in the government system, be able to build their own institutions. So I think for me is the focus should be on how to internally improve the governance system, how to improve the socio-economic conditions of the people, and how to build democratic institutions.
I agree with you. Neil, what do you think?
That will mean that it's just a continuity, and France is here to protect the interest.
I wonder what those interests are, because some are wondering. We keep hearing the word interest. What are the interests? Quickly.
Well, Gabon is oil.
Resource.
Oil resources. Well, that is our show for today. We want to thank our guests who joined us on Skype, Ms. Nganji, and I want to thank my co-host and especially Niwa for being with us for the first time.
Awesome. Love it.